Welcome to What's Cooking, part of my pizza series today. We're going to be making amazing homemade pizza dough from scratch. Please hit the bell, subscribe, and like the video. Our recipe today is going to be for 8 280 gram dough balls. It's going to be 60% hydration, salt 3%, oil 4%. I'm going to proof it at 3 hours. Ambient room temperature is about 70. These are the measurements. You can pause it and write it down. You can just download the Uni app. We'll be using Caputo Pizzeria Type 00 flour for this recipe. I'm using a gram scale and zeroing it down. It's the easiest way to keep exact measurements. We're using 1,341 grams of flour. You can cut this down depending on how many balls you want. Figure this out yourself. I'm using 805 grams of water at room temperature, 40 grams of salt, which you don't want to put until after you mix it, and 40 grams of olive oil. Also don't want to put that in until after we've mixed it a bit. Yeast, I'm using 13 grams of dry instant yeast. Seems to be what's available. And 13 grams will get it to rise within a 3-hour period pretty good. For mixing it, you can do it by hand, or you can use a stand mixer like I'm doing here, and that seems to work fine with me. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to pour most of the water into the mixing bowl. Next, I am going to add my 13 grams of yeast into the water, put the mixer down, lock it, turn it on. I'll let that run for a few seconds, a minute or two, and then I will stop it. I'm going to add a little flour, and not the whole thing, just probably about half. I want to get it mixing, and I want it to mix well before I add the rest of the flour. So let that go for a minute, and then we'll put the rest in. Okay, so we're putting the rest of the flour in, making a thicker dough. We're going to let this run for a good 4 or 5 minutes. Fast forward it so you don't have to sit here and watch the entire process. It's got a good mix to it now, as you can see. If you're working this by hand, it's going to be a little tougher. Well, it's mixed pretty good now, and at this point I am going to stop it, and I'm going to add salt. Sprinkle it around everywhere evenly, don't just dump it in one spot. Sometimes it's hard to do best. And then we are going to turn it back on again and let that mix for a few minutes. Okay, a few minutes has gone by. It's time to add the oil to give it that nice aroma flavor when you're cooking that you love on the pizza dough. We'll let it mix for a few more minutes. We'll speed that up, and I'm going to pull the dough off of the mixer. You'll notice that I'm wearing gloves. Much easier to wash your hands if they're not covered. I'm going to throw a little more extra flour on top, makes it a little easier. This is a wet hydration of 60%, so I want to be able to roll it into some balls. Some people like to leave the dough ball in the container and let it sit there for 20 minutes, half an hour, 40 minutes, whatever, to get that gluten to build. I don't see the point in this. I'm just going to put it on the counter and break it into the balls. So first I'm going to put some flour down so I can move it around the way I need to move it. And I'm going to take the dough out place it into a shaped ball and then cut it into 2 separate pieces, which are easy to work with. Okay, you can see I've got this one big large dough ball here. Get rid of that, and I'm just gonna make it nice and smooth so I can cut this in half. Just grab the scale here, set it up. I'm making 280 gram balls, as close to it as I can. Well, there's no real science to this, it's just best guess estimates. Separate them out and just get them a little dry so they're easy to work with. Get that scale ready, tear it down to 0, and I'm going to cut them into 4 balls each piece. That'll give me a total of 8. Now these balls are not exactly 280 grams, but I'm going to get each one of them as close to it as I possibly can. So it's a trial and error. I'm going to weigh. It's close, put it down. Some of them are lighter than the other ones. Some of them are more. Trick is to just keep going back and forth until you've reached a point where you're happy with them. Eventually you kind of sort of get there, and then it's time to start rolling them up. Okay, so this is a proofing box. I'm going to put a little flour in there. Some people put oil. I put the flour. A little bit, not too much. The balls just go in there. You can space them out. It has a cover. If you don't have one of these, you can put them in Tupperware. A lot of people just put them in little bowls. Let them sit with some cling wrap over the top. However you choose to do it is fine, as long as you get them to sit out and get that gluten to ferment and rise. That's really the key. Now if you just started, you might want to consider using smaller balls. I use 280 gram balls because I've been doing this for a while, but when I first started using it, I made smaller pizzas at about 180 to 220. Just seemed a little easier to manipulate the pizza inside the oven. Okay, so now, whoops, I've got my 8 balls, and just make sure they're all placed evenly so they don't rise on top of each other. And I'm going to put the cover on them. And this is what they look like when they're all completed in the tray. This is, like I said, this is a really good tray. I've got a bunch of them in case I have parties and stuff like that and get a lot of people to have pizza. I would definitely make smaller ones. After about 3 hours, they should look like this out in the yard, ready to go. They have doubled in size. If I had gone another hour, they would have probably gotten a lot bigger. Check out one of these other videos here on the side. Please like, hit the bell notification, and subscribe. Thanks for watching What's Cooking. Have a good day.